Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
madam,
And
you're
slide
audible.
this.
And there is no echo. Slides पण दिसतात. You
Fine.
can go.
Good. Very good. Chala. Thank you. Thanks. Acha, so vasculitis is inflammation of blood vessel wall with necrosis, thrombosis. So the patient can have bleeding manifestations as well as ischemic manifestation of the affected organ. Now, vasculitis can be primary or secondary. Primary vasculitis is classified depending on size of the vessels as large vessel, medium vessel, and small vessel vasculitis. So, large vessel has giant cell arteritis and Takayasu arteritis. Medium vessel is classic polyarteritis nodosa and Kawasaki, which occurs in children below 5 years of age. And small vessel vasculitis can be granulomatous like Wegener's or Church-Strauss, which is eosinophilic granulomas, or non-granulomatous, that is henoch-Schönlein purpura, essential cryoglobulinemia, microscopic polyangiitis, anti-GBM, cutaneous vasculitis, and CTD associated. Now, vasculitis of variable size can occur in Behçet's and Kogan syndrome. We will not be talking on that. I'll be talking only on this part. And secondary vasculitis can be because of drugs, infection, other diseases like rheumatoid arthritis vasculitis or SLE vasculitis. And there can be single organ vasculitis like primary CNS angiitis. And but we will be speaking mainly on the primary vasculitis, which I showed at the first part of this slide. Now, when do you suspect vasculitis? It's a multi-system disease. When there is involvement of the skin in the form of various rashes, nodes, digital gangrene, non-healing ulcers, or involvement of the kidneys in the form of young hypertension, proteins or RBCs in the urine, or raised creatinine, or nervous system involvement as young CVA, mononeuritis multiplex, polyneuritis. So, any two of these are involved, think of vasculitis, think of multi-system disease. Skin rashes can be various, like palpable purpura to non-healing ulcers, nodes. Now, clinical situations when you should be suspecting vasculitis is when the patient has systemic features like fever, arthralgia, myalgia, fatigue, weight loss, raised ESR, plus any of these following like mononeuritis multiplex, acute neurodeficit in young hypertension with raised ESR, rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, cynopulmonary renal syndrome, skin rashes, digital gangrene, scleritis, marginal ulcerative keratitis, corneal melt, sudden sensory neural nerve deafness, pulmonary hemorrhages, and late onset asthma are manifestations of vasculitis. So, if any patient with these features, please think of vasculitis. Now, let us start with cases. Now, this 45-year-old patient presented in 1997 she was actually symptomatic with recurrent cold, which was diagnosed as allergic rhinitis, then cough and breathlessness, which was diagnosed as interstitial lung disease, and she was given a course of prednisolone for a month, and she was admitted with immense fatigue. All these were there for 8 months. When the patient was admitted with me, her chest physician was treating her, told me that the patient has a lot of psychological overlay. But actually, this patient's ESR was high, 135. So you can't label somebody with high ESR as, hysterical or psychological or PSY. Creatinine was 1. Urine showed RBCs of 120. So, due to respiratory symptoms and urine showing RBCs and raised ESR, a systemic disease was thought of and patient's ANCA was sent. She was C-ANCA positive. So, her kidney biopsy was done. The biopsy was reported by Dr. Arun Chitle, a very eminent histopathologist. It was reported as many glomeruli seen. Most are sclerosed. 14 glomeruli are relatively preserved. They are showing sclerosis, crescents, and fibrinoid necrosis. Biopsy consistent with diagnosis of Wegener's granulomatosis in end-stage kidney disease. Because her creatinine was 1, I monitored her creatinine clearance, which remained 30 ml per minute for next 5 years. She was treated with cyclosporin cyclophosphamide and prednisolone. Initially, cyclophosphamide was given as pulses and later oral. And after 5 years, patient's creatinine was 50 ml per minute, and it remained so for next 15 years. Her daughter was in first MBBS that time. She completed her MS general surgery followed by MS plastic surgery. So patient lived for more than 15 years, then lost to follow. Another patient, this patient was Wegener's granulomatosis, now called as granulomatous polyangiitis, GPA. Case 2, 19-year-old man had digital gangrene, and if you can notice, he has left foot drop. Okay, again, raised ESR, RBCs and proteins in the urine. So suspected vasculitis, sent ANCA. He was P-ANCA, that is myeloperoxidase positive. A Suralna biopsy was also done on the left side, which revealed vasculitis of vasa nervosum. So diagnosis of microscopic polyangiitis, patient treated with prednisolone and cyclophosphamide. So that was a patient of MPO, ANCA. Now case 3 was a patient uh, who I saw just last year, 49-year-old man who was brought to my clinic on a wheelchair. He had history of breathlessness in February 2022. Even though his COVID swab was negative, he was treated as COVID. A year later, he developed some rash. He had eosinophilia, and all throughout the illness for 3 years before he came to me, he had eosinophilia ranging from 10 to 60%. He developed this necrotic rash and a foot drop on the right side in October 2023. His nerve conduction studied revealed bilateral lower limb sensory motor neuropathy, asymmetric axonal. Mind you, 80% of axonal neuropathies are because of vasculitis. He was treated till he reached my clinic with steroids and mycophenolate mofetil. He also developed diabetes because of steroids and was accordingly on treatment. In Jan 2025, he developed some paraparesis, the notes of which were absolutely not showing anything, whether it was UMN, LMN, there was no bladder involvement, and he underwent some spinal surgery for that. Details not known. His ejection fraction, Hep BC, everything was negative. Now, in January 2025, he developed a right wrist drop, and in May 2025, he developed a left wrist drop. ANCA was negative. He came to my clinic on 1st July 2025. I suspected EGPA, that is Church-Strauss syndrome. His power in the shoulders was 5 by 5, hip 2 by 5, rest all power by 0. Touch pain reduced in the limbs and significant wasting of the muscles. So clinical impression was EGPA with mononeuritis multiplex with past history of eosinophilic pneumonia. Patient was same day advised cyclophosphamide and injection methylprednisolone followed by oral prednisolone. And the pulse was repeated. Pulse cyclophosphamide was repeated 3 weeks later. I'll show you his, and he was started on physiotherapy. The physiotherapist was told to for home visit. Just see, within 5 weeks he could, uh, start moving his limbs. Little later, he could move so much. Sorry. So within 2 months, the patient was able to stand. So that was EGPA. So now if you see this treatment chart I'm showing of EGPA, if severe EGPA if the patient has, that means the patient having alveolar hemorrhage or peripheral neuropathy, the patient should be treated with steroids and cyclophosphamide. So that's what I wanted to stress, that you cannot give mycophenolate mofetil to a patient who has got severe systemic vasculitis. Another patient admitted in surgery ward with gangrene. He became breathless. That was his X-ray when rheumatology reference, general medicine reference was taken to my unit, and the patient had high ESR, creatinine was high. The X-ray is showing bilateral alveolar shadows with sparing of apices. So that is pulmonary hemorrhage. And this was his X-ray post treatment. So this was pulmonary renal syndrome. Patient also had raised creatinine, proteins, and RBCs in the urine, ESR was high. So C ANCA and anti-PR3 positive. So that was vaginous granulomatosis presenting as digital gangrene and pulmonary renal syndrome. This was another patient who was admitted in surgery ward with non-healing leg ulcer. Patient developed digital gangrene when rheumatology reference was taken. Additional history which I got was a month before her admission, she had inflammatory granulomas, operated and started on anti-TB drugs, but AKT was stopped because her backtake was negative. Additional history which I got was she had history of joint pain and fever. She denied history of any ENT complaints. But since we suspected vasculitis, her ANCA was sent, which was positive C ANCA anti-PR3. So I again sat with her and asked her on direct inquiry. She gave history of bilateral sudden hearing loss 6 months before. That time she had taken ENT opinion. It was attributed to common cold. Audiogram done in our hospital revealed severe bilateral conductive deafness. Now these were her reports. Creatinine was 3.2. So this patient was vaginous granulomatous, that is GPA, presenting as sudden hearing loss, granulomatous, adnexal infection, inflammation, non-healing leg ulcer, digital gangrene, and rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis. On starting cyclophosphamide, within 2 weeks, her creatinine normalized. I have follow-up of this patient till February 2026 and she is doing well. Just see, remember, within 6 months treatment was started. The first case I showed you, within 8 months treatment was started, but the biopsy showed so much of damage on the of the kidney. So this time period is extremely important. It should be, the treatment should be started within 12 months. I'll show you cases to prove this point. This particular patient was from Dule. He had systemic symptoms and hemoptysis. His X-ray was done by the GP and he was started on anti-TB drugs, which is common thing. X-ray that time did not show much. He had recurrent hemoptysis for which X-rays were done, and some of them they showed bilateral alveolar shadows. In August 2005, his creatinine was 2. So this was within, say, about 13 to 14 months from the onset. He was admitted in our hospital in January 2006 when his creatinine was 6 and he had already developed small contracted kidneys. In my ward, he developed streaky hemoptysis, again alveolar shadows. So the patient was treated. He was P ANCA positive, microscopic polyangiitis, presenting as recurrent alveolar hemorrhage and glomerulonephritis, that is pulmonary renal syndrome. Within 14 months, he had become end-stage kidney disease. We could treat him, bring his creatinine down, but at 9 months of follow-up after discharge, his creatinine was 3.4. Now, this was a study done by one of my residents' thesis, peripheral arterial disease, that is digital gangrene, 45 cases. 20% of them were because of vasculitis. Another resident thesis, non-healing leg ulcers, 40 cases, 18 patients out of 40 were because of vasculitis. Pulmonary renal syndrome may sound very, very rare. It is a rare thing, but, and I had seen 13 cases over 18 months. I gave it as a thesis topic to my resident. I told him, sorry, I said 18 months, it was over 18 years, 13 cases over 18 years. I told my resident, let us take pulmonary renal syndrome as a thesis topic. So every patient of hemoptysis, you look for RBCs in the urine. Every patient with this sort of X-ray, that is bilateral alveolar shadows, you will look for RBCs in the urine. And every patient of nephritis, you'll ask for history of hemoptysis. So with these inclusion criteria, within next 2 years, the resident could get 12 more patients of pulmonary renal syndrome. And I mean, of course, some of them were because infection related, but the non-infection related out of 25 were 18 and 12 of them were ANCA positive vasculitis. So far we have seen AVV, that is ANCA associated vasculitis, can present as ENT complaints, various rashes, nephritis, pulmonary hemorrhage, and mononeuritis multiplex. Now, this particular patient, male 25, has severe deep pain and redness of the eye, which is tender to touch. Anybody with clinical diagnosis? That's scleritis. And the most important investigation for scleritis is ANCA. So about a lot of patients with ANCA positive vasculitis can have systemic involvement. Almost 60% of them have systemic involvement. And first manifestation of ANCA positive vasculitis, that is of GPA, can be scleritis. So every scleritis send ANCA. Another patient, this patient again I saw in last 2 years, July 2023, this patient had some hearing loss. Then 2-3 months later developed scleritis, which was treated by ophthalmologist with topicals. She was then admitted in October 2023 with peripheral ulcerative keratitis, peripheral neuropathy, and was given endoxan. During her admission in a corporate hospital, she had developed breathlessness. Her hemoglobin had fallen to 6. They had done BAL of the patient but lost the X-ray. Possibly the patient had a diffuse alveolar hemorrhage because that time her urine had shown 20 to 25 RBCs as well. This patient was again treated. With rituximab and MMF, and on 22nd April 2024, she got admitted. She came to my clinic with scleral mite. Vision in the right eye was PRPL, that is projection perception light, and left eye there was disc edema with vision of 6/60. This is how the patient was. Her creatinine also was raised. See, in October 23, creatinine was all right. In November 23, creatinine raised, there was proteinuria. Same day, patient was given cyclophosphamide and methylprednisolone, which was repeated 3 weeks later, and the patient's creatinine normalized. Her proteinuria also reduced. Vision improved to finger counting in the right eye and 6/9 in the left eye. In April 2025, after she underwent both cataract surgeries, creatinine by then was 0.8, vision in the right eye 6/24 and the left eye 6/6. So this patient from July 23 to April 24. So within 9 months, she was started on correct treatment, so improved. Remember here, rituximab and mycophenolate mofetil has not helped the patient. Now, these are various clinical features of ANCA-associated vasculitis, that is GPA, microscopic polyangiitis, and EGPA. Now, the ENT symptoms of GPA and EGPA, they occur in 70% patient of ENT symptoms occur in 70% patients of Wegener's and 50% patients of eosinophilic granulomatous uveitis. They can be first presenting feature, and they can be in the form of nasal congestion, crusting, epistaxis, later on septal perforation, and saddle nose. EGPA presentation can be allergic rhinitis, polyp. Ear presentation can be otitis media, chronic otorrhea, hearing loss, mastoiditis, granuloma in the external ear. Larynx can be involved as granuloma, ulcer, subglottic stenosis, and stridor. So any patient with destructive refractory sinusitis, please think of Wegener's and go for CT as well as MRI and final diagnosis biopsy. And this is ENT differential diagnosis of ANCA-associated vasculitis. So infections, neoplasm, other inflammatory diseases like sarcoidosis, relapsing polychondritis, IgG, 4RD, etc. And cocaine-induced also. Now, a point that I want to make is EGPA only 40% are ANCA positive, and that is why they can, there can be delay in diagnosis, and many of them they develop cardiomyopathy, and we have seen a lot of such patients who had come as idiopathic cardiomyopathy. That means ischemia ruled out, valvular and congenital heart ruled out. So my thesis, my resident thesis, Dr. Deepak Malgutte's thesis was this so-called idiopathic cardiomyopathy. 44 of them. In 21, we could find systemic rheumatic disease. 9 were vasculitis, 4 were eosinophilic. Actually, in this patient, either peripheral eosinophilia or most of them, bone marrow eosinophilia helped us to reach a diagnosis, and their ejection fraction improved from 15 to 20%. before starting immunosuppression to 40 to 45% within 4 to 6 weeks of starting immunosuppression. This is an important take home point. Now, these are various treatment guidelines for ANCA positive vasculitis. I'll be coming to them. Coming to medium vessel vasculitis, PAN and Kawasaki disease. Now, this lady had erythema nodosum, non-healing ulcers, convulsion, mononeuritis multiplex, was admitted in my ward, ESR high, urine was normal, skin biopsy, medium vessel vasculitis, she was hepatitis B positive, so that was polyarteritis nodosa precipitated by hepatitis B. Another patient admitted in dermatology ward of Sion Hospital, fever, arthritis, this rash and burning in lower limbs. He had undergone emergency cholecystectomy 2 years back for acute abdomen. EMG NCV revealed sensory neuropathy in both lower limbs and a biopsy revealed medium vessel vasculitis. So, polyarteritis nodosa. This is an interesting patient admitted in neurosurgery. He had buttock and thigh claudication. His ankle reflex was absent. So he was diagnosed as lumbar canal stenosis. Note his age 28. He was posted for laminectomy. Anesthetist detected high blood pressure and took medical reference. On examination, we found sensory loss in the legs and absent jerk. So we suspected peripheral neuropathy. So hypertension, peripheral neuropathy, and raised ESR, we thought of vasculitis. His angiogram was done, which detected aneurysm. So it was a polyarteritis nodosa case. The polyarteritis nodosa affects medium vessel vasculitis predominantly. It does not affect the veins. And various types of rashes, bowel ischemia, and the patient can get admitted as acute abdomen and can get his appendix or gallbladder out. The surgeon not noticing the ischemic bowel. Diagnosis is by angiography, showing angiography of the mesenteric or celiac axis, or biopsy of the skin, muscle, kidney, sural nerve, etc. It can be associated with hepatitis B or C. Treatment of hepatitis B C negative is with steroids, immunosuppression, and those with hepatitis B C positive, you give antivirals to the patient and immunosuppressants. Large vessel vasculitis, Takayasu osteoarthritis. I'll be tackling Kawasaki at the end, that in childhood vasculitis. That is another medium vessel vasculitis. So Takayasu osteoarthritis, and so this female was admitted with hypertension during pregnancy and fetal loss. She had fetal loss before as well. My resident who went to see the patient noticed that her left arm pulse was weak. So aortogram was done. Aortogram revealed that the left brachiocephalus was absent. Even the nephrogram, the right kidney renal artery is narrow. The renogram is yet to come. So the patient was started on treatment with steroids and methotrexate, and then once ESR CRP came to normal, angioplasty was done. Her BP, when it was controlled, she then became pregnant and had a successful delivery. Another young patient, so the previous question was Takayasu, that is large vessel vasculitis in young patients. Now this patient was admitted in congestive cardiac failure, had raised ESR. Mind you, ESR is less than 10 generally in patient in congestive cardiac failure. Raised ESR in CCF patient, think of vasculitis or any systemic disease. And this particular patient had absent peripheral pulse also. Radial was absent. Ejection fraction 20-25, pulmonary hypertension was there. Angiography was done. Patient's 2D echo and MRI was reported as left ventricular non-compaction syndrome, which is a congenital condition. So the treatment for that is lifelong anticoagulation, because that non-compacted myocardium, in that bloods can get clotted and patient can embolize. But because her angiogram showed aortoarthritis, see, this is how her MRI heart was. This is how non-compacted, and this is a cartoon of that. And here the blood clots get formed. So started the patient on treatment because her aortoarthritis, started on treatment with methotrexate and prednisolone. But at 6 weeks there was no improvement. So the patient was given tocilizumab. After 3 monthly pulses of tocilizumab, patient's 2D echo showed improvement in ejection fraction from 20-25 to 40-45, and there was no pulmonary hypertension at this point of time. So the final diagnosis, Takayasu aortoarthritis with myocarditis masquerading spongiform cardiomyopathy, that is LV non-compaction. Another similar patient, this was a male 20-year-old, was admitted in ICU with a cardiac failure. He developed a stroke. Again, his left lower limb pulsation was absent, and aortogram revealed aortoarthritis, and the patient was treated with immunosuppression and improved. And I still have follow-up of this patient. This patient was, I think, somewhere in 2012, and so 13-14 years of follow-up is there. So Takayasu aortoarthritis can present with systemic features quite often as PO, then young stroke, young hypertension, recurrent abortion in female patients, abdominal pain, and examination wise, the patient can have absent pulse and bruit, or the patient can be in cardiac failure. So, PO patient, when you do CT PET, you can detect uptake in the aorta and its main branches. Every young patient of stroke and young hypertension, look for peripheral pulsation, take blood pressure in all 4 limbs. There should not be disparity, and investigate for aortoarthritis. So commonest large vessel vasculitis in Asians, generally age of onset is below 40. Diagnosis is by MR angiography of aorta or CT aortogram or conventional angiography or CT PET. And take my word, out of these 4 investigation, quite often you need to do 3 or 4 to prove the diagnosis. So just one is normal does not rule out the diagnosis. You have to persistently go on investigating. So treatment is with steroids and methotrexate, and for refractory cases or severe cases, tocilizumab or TNF blockers. And surgery, plasty, stent, bypass, reconstruction. Giant cell arteritis is the commonest large vessel vasculitis in Caucasians, onset more than age 50 or 60. They get headache, jaw claudication, polymyalgia rheumatica, that is pelvic and pectoral girdle pain, raised ESR, CRP. Temporal arteries can be tender. There can be sudden permanent vision loss. So diagnosis is by temporal artery biopsy or ultrasound of the temporal artery halo sign. When you think of the diagnosis, start the patient on steroids and immunosuppression. Again, here too, methotrexate or tocilizumab, that is IL-6 blocker, are useful. This is a differential diagnosis of vasculitis. Antiphospholipid antibody syndrome can have multiple places: thrombi, infective endocarditis, embolization to multiple organs, atrial myxoma, embolization to multiple organs, cholesterol emboli, sepsis with MSOF can look similar to acute presentation of vasculitis, anti-GBM disease, and IgG4-RD. So the clinical approach to vasculitis is to establish the diagnosis, evaluate for severity, identify if there are any treatable causes like drug, infection, malignancy, and then treat the condition. These are the investigations that you should be doing. Establish the diagnosis in 24 hours. The most important statement of this slide is establish the diagnosis ASAP. Additional investigation depending upon organ involvement, say like if the patient has mononeuritis and EMG no conduction, if the patient has hearing loss and audiometry, etc. Skin biopsy, send it for IF as well, immunofluorescence as well. So that is IgA nephropathy. Skin biopsy, the type of lesion will decide how we would do the biopsy. From the node, center of the node, ulcer, edge of the ulcer, livedo reticularis if the patient has 3-4 biopsies from red as well as white skin, and digital gangrene. Now, what is the outcome of vasculitis? If untreated, vaginous, 1-year mortality 82%, non-renal vaginous 40%, 1-year mortality, pan 5-year mortality 88%. With treatment, 50% relapse, side effects occur in 40%. End organ damage like ESRD can occur in vaginous, MPA, pan, blindness in giant cell arteritis, stroke, ischemia in Takayasu aortoarthritis. Severity of spectrum can be from non-severe, that is sino-renal and oral or joint or skin disease, to very severe, that is glomerulonephritis, RPGN, CNS involvement, alveolar hemorrhage, mononeuritis multiplex, vision threatening scleritis. Now, treatment is vasculitis is like malignancy treatment. So you give remission induction followed by maintenance of remission. Now, the induction is for 4 to 6 months, say about 3 to 4 months, up to 6 months, and maintenance is 24 to 48 months. Then there are other drugs that is beyond immunosuppression to reduce incidence of infection, especially pneumocystitis gyrovae, with Septran, rescue therapy like Plex, and there are certain investigational therapies also. Now, this is showing EULAR 2022 treatment guidelines. This is American College of Rheumatology and Vasculitis Foundation 2021 guidelines. Now, it mentions rituximab over cyclophosphamide. I absolutely don't agree with it, because RAVE trial as well as both the trials done for rituximab, RAVE did not include severe patient with creatinine of 4 or those on a ventilator, and the other rituximab trial, both published in NEJM. First 2 months, the patient were given cyclophosphamide, and then rituximab was given. So you cannot, consider rituximab over cyclophosphamide. It works the best, and that too full dose, not 500 milligram 2 weekly, 1 gram. So the treatment for severe patients is with steroids with cyclophosphamide, pulse preferred. The cyclophosphamide has toxicity like cystitis, bladder cancer, myelodysplasia, infertility, etc. And because of that infertility related thing, one may conditionally use rituximab in young patients who have yet to complete their family. And another place where one can use rituximab if the patient for some reason has cytopenias. So now Avacopan has come as another treatment module for a patient of vasculitis. Now this is showing various maintenance, various induction and maintenance regimens. See, all this started in 2003 onwards. Various trials were started. So the first case which I showed you was treated in 1997. In 1970s, Anthony Fauci, you must have heard of Anthony Fauci in COVID, during COVID, as well as he was editor of Harrison Tech's Principles of Medicine. So he had conducted the first studies on in NIH with endoxan, cyclophosphamide. It was given orally to the patient, 2 to 3 milligram per kilogram body weight, and that is when the mortality came down. So the first patient which I showed you, who had allergic rhinitis and RBCs and 135 ESR, this patient was treated, like much before all these studies were available. Now, all these studies were done basically because to reduce cyclophosphamide toxicity. So instead of, during maintenance phase, azoran was used. Then during maintenance phase, methotrexate was used. For mild patients, that is without renal involvement, just sinus involvement, methotrexate was used in NORAM as immunosuppression. So all those were the studies were done in last 20 years. Okay, before that, patients were treated with steroids and cyclophosphamide only. And in last, that the French group has basically studied role of rituximab in maintenance as well as induction. And yes, it does work for maintenance as well as induction, but for maintenance, the duration, once you stop rituximab or once you stop immunosuppression, there is a relapse tendency that happens with rituximab as well. So initially the duration of treatment was for 2 years maintenance. Now it is extended to 4 years. Okay, now coming to rescue therapy, plasma exchange. Plex is used as a rescue therapy for patient with severe ANCA-associated vasculitis, especially patient with pulmonary Raynaud syndrome. Now, Pexivas trial was published in NEJM 2020. It was a negative trial, meaning it showed that plasma exchange does not help in severe vasculitis, ANCA-associated vasculitis, in preventing death or ESRD at the end of 12 months. It included 700 patients followed for 7 years. They were divided into plex or no plex. 50% got plex, 50% didn't get plex. The patients for induction received cyclophosphamide or rituximab. And in each division, standard dose and low dose steroid was um, given. And what they uh, concluded at the end was that plex is not useful in reducing ESRD at the end of 1 year. But many people, like we had used plex for many patients successfully, so a lot of investigators also had done that, and that is why they conducted a meta-analysis. So 700 of Pexivas patient plus 360 of previous trials patients, okay, were included, and it was found that in the meta-analysis that plex was useful, and it should be started in patients who have creatinine more than or equal to 3.4 as against 5.7 before. Now, why this particular result of meta-analysis was different from that of Pexivas? So the all trials which were done before Pexivas trial were done before 2010, that is before rituximab became available. So the patients were treated with cyclophosphamide. So cyclophosphamide and plex, yes, it helps in reducing mortality as well as reducing incidence of ESRD at 1 year. With rituximab and plex, you cannot stop end-stage renal disease. Second conclusion of this study was low-dose steroids were as good as uh, standard dose steroid. That is 0.5 mg per kg was as good as 1 mg per kg. Again, in rituximab group, only standard dose steroid works. What it means is rituximab is weaker than cyclophosphamide for treatment of severe ANCA-associated vasculitis. You have already been shown what is severe. Okay, now cutaneous vasculitis, biopsy diagnosis, and the patients are treated with steroid, dapsone, colchicine. One may use even azathioprine. Now, avacopan, which is complement 5A receptor blocker, 30 mg BD dose. The trial was published in 2021, NEJM advocate trial. In one group, the patients were given avacopan and no steroid, and in the other group, steroid were given. Patients were previously treated with cyclophosphamide or rituximab. So, avacopan, one can get rid of steroids. Another new drug is Nucala, that is mepolizumab, useful for EGPA. It is interleukin 5 binding protein. The dose is 100 milligram every 4 weeks to 300 milligram every 4 weeks subcut. Childhood vasculitis. Now there is a request. Next slide, you can record this slide after that. That is, 70 and 71. I don't want you to include patient pictures. So this is a request for the person who is recording. Okay. So henox-1 purpura is the commonest childhood arthritis. They get purpura, palpebral purpura, joint pain, abdominal angina, plus minus nephritis. Age of onset below 20. Diagnosis is by showing IgA deposits in the biopsy of the skin or kidney. So treatment is symptomatic treatment or steroid plus minus cyclophosphamide depending upon involvement of kidney and gut is there or not. So this is Kawasaki disease is medium vessel vasculitis that occurs in children below the age of 5 years. They develop mucocutaneous lesions, fever, irritability, arthritis, the swelling of the feet and hand. 10 to 20% of them, they develop coronary aneurysms. Okay, so when moment you think of Kawasaki disease, start the patient on IVIG. There is no biomarker and don't have to document coronary aneurysm for the treatment. Okay, so think of it, start, and that is the reason I've included this measly looking child. The Kawasaki disease, this particular patient of ours, we thought of it, immediately treated the patient. Patient had a coronary aneurysm, 5 mm size, and within after starting IVIG, within 12 hours, the patient showed so much improvement. DADA2 is childhood pan. Basically, they develop recurrent stroke, skin rashes, peripheral vascularitis, and they do have bone marrow failures. The treatment of this particular, the diagnosis is by documenting mutation of CCR1 gene and DADA2 deficiency, functional deficiency. The treatment is with TNF blockers and those with cytopenias, stem cell transplant. So you suspect DADA2 deficiency in early onset polyarthritis nodosa with stroke, immunodeficiency, cytopenia, and family history. Coming to differential diagnosis, important. Male 11 had generalized body swelling for 1 month, proteinuria, diagnosed as nephrotic syndrome, and started on 2 mg per kg prednisolone. He developed hypertension, so was admitted in pediatric ward of Sion Hospital, and nifedipine propranolol was the treatment going on with steroids. The patient developed a patient's ultrasound showed renal artery thrombus, and then the patient developed stroke when they thought of vasculitis and took a rheumatology reference. When I saw the patient, I asked additional history. Patient said bilateral vision loss. The mother immediately said, "अरे मेरे को नहीं बताया." He said, "नहीं, teacher को बताया था." Anyway, the fundus showed uh, pale edematous retina, segmentation of blood, and bilateral secondary optic atrophy. So the patient had nephrotic syndrome, hypertension, renal artery thrombus, proteinuria, raised sediment, urinary sediments, high ESR, and hemiplegia, secondary optic atrophy. 2D echo, patient had infective endocarditis. This patient was admitted as multiple gangrene. A rheumatology reference was taken for vasculitis. The patient had antiphospholipid antibody syndrome, catastrophic. This patient had undergone angiography for cardiac symptoms. Post angiography, he developed cholesterol emboli. Another young medical student had swelling left eye. Multiple ophthal and ENT consults were done. She had 3 biopsies. They were reported as biopsy chronic dacrocystitis, vasculitis like Wegener's granulomatosis, ANCA negative, but only 40% limited Wegener's are ANCA positive. So the all are not. But I insisted on second opinion because I thought there was really lot of destruction here. So I wanted to rule out malignancy. I wanted Dr. Anita Borges madam's opinion, and on taking second opinion, she was B cell lymphoma. Patient was treated and was perfectly fine post treatment for next 5 years at least. Now, this particular patient was referred to me, was rather admitted in Sion Hospital. He was referred to us from Murud for fever, headache, vomiting. Platelets were low, temperature was high. He was started on routine treatment of fever, which is done in Municipal Hospital, that is ceftriaxone and artesunate. On post-emergency round, he appeared confused to me. So I made him, raise his hand, raise his legs, walk a bit. And I thought he was dragging his legs. So his CT or MRI of the brain was done, which revealed multiple infarcts. So 2D echo was done and it revealed a cardiac myxoma. So that was like, vasculitis like presentation, fever and stroke in a patient of cardiac myxoma. VEXAS is another new adult onset inflammatory disorder where the patient is, it is because of UB1 gene mutation. Patient has vasculitis, relapsing polychondritis, and cytopenias, and the patient's bone marrow shows vacuoles. The treatment is with steroids, immunosuppressant. So that's how VEXAS is. Thank you. Any questions? Are there questions? Hello.
Thank you, ma'am, actually for such a vast cases
दिसत होतं
study.
का रे बाबा?
हो सगळं मॅम दिसत होतं.
अच्छा, okay,
No
fine.
issues.
Thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
so actually,
Yeah.
I'll just go through the questions. Ma'am, when do you consider plasma exchange in pulmonary renal syndrome at the
When a patient has alveolar hemorrhages, hypoxia, do consider it. And secondly, patient who has creatinine which is more than 3.4, consider plasma exchange. Especially go by creatinine more than 3, go for plasma exchange. If the patient has, like we had done this study in Sion Hospital, my recent thesis, those who went on ventilator, by then if you wait, it really doesn't improve mortality. So pulmonary renal syndrome not requiring ventilator, yes, go ahead and do plasma exchange. Those who already develop, so much hypoxia that they need ventilator, it is not found to be useful. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
complications of
Hello.
yeah.
Madam, can you add a word on leukocytoclastic vasculitis because we very often see them coming from skin?
Yeah, leukocytoclastic vasculitis is basically skin limited vasculitis, or it can occur secondary to other vasculitis also. So, if it is not involving other major organs, so whenever vital organs are involved, the treatment is with steroids and high dose immunosuppression. But if it is limited to skin, then one can try say up to 15-20 milligrams of steroids plus colchicine or azathioprine or dapsone. In my opinion, small dose of steroids and azathioprine works better, but dermatologists won't agree. They would go for dapsone and colchicine.
Now they are even giving tofacitinib first line for leukocytosis.
Yeah, tofacitinib for vasculitis, of course. I mean, the studies are not there, but then it's been
Yes.
used for almost every damn thing. And there was
Every-
last time I had a debate whether tofacitinib like steroids or
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Uh,
Anything else?
there is
Students, any
no.
questions? Any doubts? Exercise for students is in last 2-3 years of residency. Just think of whether you missed any vasculitis. Pulmonary renal syndrome, the alveolar shadows, bilateral alveolar shadows with sparing of apices, it looks very much like, you may think it looks like ARDS with multi-system organ failure, or you may think it looks like left heart failure, pulmonary edema. It may look to you like, bronchopneumonia, things like that. But then do keep in mind that in bronchopneumonias and in ARDS or in pulmonary edema, there is no reason for patient to have RBCs or protein in the urine.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you are having doubt, you can give immunosuppression and high dose antibiotics as well. I mean, quite often you have to do that. The patient is critical, especially in private practice, because the relatives can catch you by your neck.
Very true, ma'am. Because mimics, like you had said, infective endocarditis and all, where we
Yeah.
need a
So
biopsy
actually,
as
a
well as
most
an.
important take home is before starting immunosuppression, always do a 2D echo.
Yes, ma'am. Uh,
If there are no
Anything else?
further questions, we would like to thank Madam for taking out time from her busy schedule and enlightening us. It was a very good learning experience, I'm sure, for all the PGs as well as the consultants and the teachers who have attended. Thank you very much, Madam, once again, and we continue this series further. And next month we will be having another lecture. Topic will be announced
Yeah.
soon.
Thanks, Vikram, and thanks, Dr. Deepak Malgute, for consistently keeping this MRA activity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Madam.
Thanks.